Hi everyone, this is lesson 15, multiplication and division of rational numbers. So for our essential question, we are going to write what are the rules for multiplying and dividing rational numbers, and how do they compare to the, we'll say, I'll abbreviate multiplying, dividing rules for integers. Okay, so in the space below, create a word problem that involves integer multiplication. Write an equation to model the situation. Okay, so the situation I made up was that 5 days this week, Mr. Jadon buys his lunch from the Commons. Let's say buys a $3 lunch. What was the change in his account? Okay, so you already know that we're going to simply multiply here. So we just want to know if he buys a $3 lunch, that should tell you that that's a negative number. So he buys a $3 lunch, and he does that 5 times this week. So we can write it either this way, -3 times 5, or we can do 5 times -3. The parentheses just kind of separate the numbers, so they can look differently. I know a lot of you have questions about that. It can look like this. It can look like this. It can be the dot. There's a lot of different ways. The parentheses are going to be common in the future because you're not going to see a symbol between them in algebra a lot of times. Okay, so what is the result though? We want to know 5 times -3, they have different signs. So it's a negative answer, and the absolute values, 5 times 3 is 15. So -15, or we can write it like this, -$15. There you go. Okay, what if we changed it? Instead of having integers, what if we had rational numbers? So it says non-integer rational numbers, which mean fractions and decimals. Go ahead and mark your text. And hopefully you're thinking that a realistic way to do this would be, what if we took the exact same problem, but instead of a $3 lunch, because the cafeteria actually doesn't, I don't think it's exactly $3. Let's just say that it's $2.50. So 5 days this week, he bought a $2.50 lunch from the Commons. So what was the change in his account? Well, we do have to do a little bit of math here since we're not using a calculator. So if you want to try it, go ahead and do 250 times 5, because our problem now is 5 times -250. And see what the result is. You can pause it if you want to try it. If you're not sure what to do, you can keep watching and follow along, do what I do. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 5 is 25. We're going to carry the 2 up here. 5 times 2 is 10 plus the 2 is 12. And that makes sense because it's about 50 cents less a day than the first example. So that would be a -$12.50 in his bank account. I'm sorry, or his school lunch account. Okay, was the process used to solve the second problem different than the process used to solve the first? It is the same process, just with a decimal instead of an integer. And that was 2.5 instead of 3. Okay, so the rules for multiplying rational numbers are the same as the rules for multiplying integers. So they are the same rules. So the first thing we do is multiply the absolute values. And then the second thing we do is determine the sign. And the way we do that, I'm not sure why it's numbered 1, 2, 3. I really just think that there's 2 steps. But for number 3, we'll put how we determine the sign. So same signs That gives us a positive answer. And different signs, that gives us a negative answer. Okay, not too bad. We'll put a little colon there so you know that's kind of like continuing on down there. Okay, so same rules actually. So for multiplying integers and multiplying rational numbers, it's the same process. So let's go ahead and look at a division example. On the next page, page 89, it says that in 1 year, Melinda's parents spend $2,640.90 on cable and internet service. Boy, that sounds like a lot. Let's see if that's actually a realistic number. If they spend the same amount each month, what is the resulting monthly change in the family's income? So resulting monthly change, they don't really give us another number except for $2,640 for the year. And then it says, what is the resulting monthly change in the family's income? I want you to always pay attention to the question. And when I say the question, I'm not really talking about the entire thing. I'm talking about what are they looking for? So they want to know the resulting monthly change in the family's income. That monthly is what gives you a hint as to what our other number should be. It says $2,640 per year, and then they want to know the monthly. So there's 12 months in a year, and that's where our second number is going to come from. So 12 months equals 1 year. Okay, so what we're going to do, and by the way, you can talk to your parents, family members, any adults you know. A lot of things we can determine. A lot of people know how much they make in 1 year and therefore can figure out what they can afford in their monthly bills, because most bills are each month, and you want to know that you're going to be able to afford those things. So here we go. We've got $2,640.90. Boy, that just sounds like a lot for cable and internet. Okay, and then we're going to divide that by 12 months to figure out what the cost is, or the resulting change in the family's income each month. Okay, 12 doesn't go into 2. I like to put a little X there so I don't accidentally put another number above the 2. Then I can go to 26, and I know that 12 goes into 26 twice. That would make 24. Then I subtract. Okay, and look at that, 24. I already know what the next number is going to be then, since 12 goes into 24 twice. And it goes in evenly. Okay, so now I bring down the 0, and this is interesting because 12 doesn't go into 0. Always put the decimal place straight up. Sometimes I like to do that ahead of time so I don't forget. Okay, now when I bring down the 9s, something else interesting happens. 12 doesn't go into 9. I actually need another 0 here. Now I bring down the 90, and finally 12 does go into 90. And how many times does 12 go into 90? Do you know that? Do you know your 12 facts? It goes in 8 times. Or sorry, 7 times. Not quite 8 is what I wanted to say. So 7 times 12 is 84. And then I subtract and get 6. Now, I could estimate and say $220.07. But with money, we do need to kind of know that next place value, because this tells us, do I round up? So we kind of need to know that last number. If that number is going to be 5 or more, I need to round up a penny. And if it is less than 5, then I can just leave it as $220.07. So let's add a 0, because we can add zeros as long as we want to. And the good thing is 12 goes into 60 evenly. So I am done no matter what, whether I was going to be done or not. $220.075, that does not mean 75 cents. Okay, we got to think about it realistically. So it's $220.07, or it rounds up to 8 cents. So what does the 5 tell us to do? It does tell us to round up. So the resulting change for the family each month is $220.08. Okay, and that's basically how much it costs for cable and internet per month. That is a lot per month, but it's actually not unrealistic. There are a lot of people that do pay that much for all their cable, which is like all their TV shows, and their internet service. Okay, the rules for dividing rational numbers, you're going to love this. See page 88. It's the exact same, you're just thinking of it as division. Okay, so the rules for dividing are the same as the rules for multiplying. So this one was saying negative $2,640.90 divided by 12 months. And that would be a change of $220.08 down each month from the family's bank account. Okay, on page 90, we're talking about exercise 3. If you have ever been a part of a fundraiser, you know that sometimes you have to keep track of it. So if you're in like a sport, or maybe even you've bought something from a fundraiser, like Girl Scout cookies, or the magazine drive at school, those kinds of things. So anytime that you see something like that, there's going to be what's called an order form. So that's what we're looking at here. The first thing we see is the customer's name. Then we see the type of plant that they bought, and then they see how many of those plants they bought, what the price is per plant. So the interesting thing in this column here is I'm going to be multiplying those two together to figure out the total cost. And then has that person paid or not? So Jeremy kind of has this chart going to keep everything in order. He's got the customers, the flowers, how many they got, the price, how much they need to pay if they haven't paid, and what the totals would be. So a couple of the totals are missing. And then each person kind of has their own specific scenario. So it's not like, okay, every single person buys one tulip and everybody paid. Okay, some people are getting tulips, daisies, violets. They're ordering different amounts of each, the price for each one, that kind of thing. So let's go ahead and read the first person's scenario, Tamara. If Tamara Jones writes a check to pay for the plants, what is the resulting change in her bank account? So what I want you to do is underline here, what is the resulting change in her bank account? Remember what I said, you want to pay attention to the question. That's the question. That's what we're looking for. The other thing I want you to pay attention to is that this one is from Tamara's point of view. I don't know if you've seen this in English, but POV, that's going to be point of view. So we'll symbolize that. So we're talking about from Tamara's point of view. So it's going to go down in her bank account, and she is buying 2 tulips. So 2 times negative 4.25 because she's paying 4.25 twice. You could also write negative 4.25 times 2. That's the same thing. Okay, go ahead and do that off to the side and see what the result is in her bank account. Okay, she is going to have to pay $8.50. That means her bank account will go down $8.50. Okay, the next one, Mr. Clark. We've got Mr. Clark right here with the geraniums. Mr. Clark wants to pay for his order with a $20 bill, but Jeremy does not have change. That's a very realistic scenario that you might not have change at that moment, so you have to figure something out later. Jeremy tells Mr. Clark he will give him the change later. How will this affect the total amount of money Jeremy collects? And you need to explain. What rational number represents the change that must be made to the money Jeremy collects? So there's kind of two questions here. First, we're going to have to figure out how much he needs to pay, and then how much Jeremy will owe him. This one is kind of hard to set up with all the negatives, so let's just take it step by step. First of all, let's figure out how much Mr. Clark has to pay. And by the way, this one is from Jeremy's point of view, so go ahead and write that, Jeremy's point of view. Okay, so Mr. Clark buys 5 geraniums, and that's $2.25 each. So let's work that off to the side. Again, you can pause it if you want to try it on your own. In fact, I really think you should see if you get it right. Okay, did you get 11.25? That's how much Mr. Clark has to pay. Okay, but he only has a 20. So how much does Jeremy owe him? Another thing that's happening, I'm noticing kids as they add, subtract, multiply, divide, things like that. So we got to remember our rules that you've learned in the past. So for decimals, you have to line up the decimals when you subtract. So it's $20 minus $11.25. Okay, I can't do 0 minus anything, so I have to go all the way over here, borrow from the 2, make that 1, make this one 9, 10, make it 9, and then I can do 10 minus 5, 9 minus 2. So even though that was a lot of work, now it makes the rest of this easier. Okay, so it's $8.75. Here's the problem, though. It's Jeremy's point of view. So Jeremy owes Mr. Clark $8.75. So this is how we can write our final answer. Okay, so whatever Jeremy has right now, he needs to take 875 out of that to pay Mr. Clark back, since Mr. Clark paid too much. He didn't have anything except a $20 bill, and like I said earlier, that's a very, very realistic scenario. Okay, let's try Jeremy's sister. She borrowed money from her mom to pay for the order, and the mother has agreed to deduct an equal amount from her allowance for the next 5 weeks. So first we need to figure out how much she owes for the flowers, and then we can figure out the weekly change in her allowance. Since her mom lent her 250, so it's saying like she owes her mom 250, and her mom says, I will take out the same amount for 5 weeks. Okay, pause the video, try doing 250 divided by 5. Okay, it looks like it's just 0.50. So does that make sense that she owes her mom 50 cents, or her mom will deduct 50 cents each week? If she owes her mom 250, her mom will take out of her allowance 50 cents for the next 5 weeks. Okay, it's kind of like a loan. Jeremy's grandparents want to change their order. They want to order 3 daisies and 1 geranium instead of 4 daisies. How does this affect the change of their order? Okay, now, the next time that we solve these problems in class, so for the lesson 15 independent practice, I'm actually taking out some of those problems. So I want you to finish these 3 as part of independent practice. Okay, so for D, E, and F, go ahead and write independent practice. And that means you can do it now. So if you feel like, okay, well, I kind of am on a roll here, go for it. But these really aren't too bad. These are kind of like word problems. And I can even help you set up E and F. That means average. So if you want to know, I'll give you a hint here. This one is 1440 divided by 3. And make sure you read E to know why it's 1440 divided by 3. And then you'll actually apply those same principles for letter F. So you can see how you did when you get to letter F. Okay, so these 3 are going to be included in independent practice. You can start them now, or you can save them for class time. And like I said, on pages 92 and 93, I'm going to be letting you skip a couple of those. So these ones will kind of replace those problems. Okay, I'll see you in class. Bye.